I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the folks who are in person as well as everybody else on Zoom. All right, so I'm Keenan Norris. I'm an associate professor of English and creative writing and the coordinator of our Steinbeck Fellows program. Let me first of all thank not just you guys in general, but I want to have a few specific shout outs right now. I see in our online audience we have Nick Taylor, who preceded me in this position as the coordinator of the Steinbeck Fellows program, also the chair of our English department, Noelle Breda Williams, and in our audience we have our provost, Vincent Del Casino. So thank you all for being here, as well as the rest of the folks. All right, so let me begin with our land acknowledgement. This land acknowledgement is provided by the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. The San Jose State University community recognizes that the present-day Muwekma Ohlone tribe, with an enrolled Bureau of Indian Affairs documented membership of over 550, is comprised of all the known surviving American Indian lineages aboriginal to the San Francisco Bay region, who trace their ancestry through the missions Santa Clara, San Jose, and Dolores during the advent of the Hispano-European Empire into Alta California, and who are the successors and living members of the sovereign, historic, previously federally recognized Verona Band of Alameda County. Furthermore, the San Jose State University community recognizes that the university is established within the Thameen Ohlone-speaking tribal ethno-historic territory, which, based upon the unratified federal treaties of 1851 through 52, includes the unceded ancestral lands of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Some of the enrolled Muwekma lineages are descended from direct ancestors from the Thameen Ohlone tribal territory, whose ancestors had affiliation with Mission Santa Clara. Also, speaking solely for myself, want to say as well that this land acknowledgement means nothing if it simply exists in the past tense or without historical context. We need to acknowledge the land back movement on this continent, and on a global level we must confront the human toll of settler colonialism and genocide as it is being borne out in Palestine and South Sudan and the Congo and elsewhere. All right, so the Steinbeck Fellowship as a program, the Steinbeck Fellows program, was endowed through the generosity of Martha Heasley Cox. It offers writers of any age and background a $15,000 fellowship to finish a significant writing project. Named in honor of John Steinbeck, the program is guided by his lifetime of work in literature, the media, and environmental activism. Fellowships are currently offered in creative writing, excluding poetry, sorry poets, and Steinbeck Studies. Fellows may be appointed in many fields, including literary scholarship, fiction, drama, education, science, and the media. We also have graduate Steinbeck Fellows, and we have a couple past and present graduate Steinbeck Fellows, and I will shout y'all out by name a little bit later. The Steinbeck Center also supports up to 6 exceptional incoming students in San Jose State's MFA Creative Writing program and MA English programs, with full in-state tuition for their first year of study. All applicants to the 2 programs are considered for these fellowships as well. There is no additional application. The Steinbeck Fellowship program in recent years has been incredibly successful. And I want to say, just as a general note, our current 2024-2025 Steinbeck Fellows are the product of the most competitive, largest applicant pool that we've had in the history of the fellowship. So these are some truly incredible writers. In recent years, Steinbeck Fellows have made a great impact across our literary landscape. For example, 2 former fellows, R.O. Kwan and Uche Okonkwo, published books last year to wide acclaim. R.O. Kwan's novel Exhibit was a national bestseller last year, while Uche's debut short story collection, A Kind of Madness, was a finalist for the 2025 NAACP Image Award. In 2022, Former fellow Vanessa Waugh's novel Forbidden City became a bestseller. And in that same year, Shruti Swami won the California Book Award for her novel, The Archer. The late Anthony Vyazna So was also a Steinbeck Fellow, and his short story collection After Parties received the 2021 National Book Critics Circle Award. And that same year, Steinbeck Fellow Meron Hidero was awarded the AKO Kane Prize. The Kane Prize is a literary prize for the entire continent of Africa in poetry, fiction, nonfiction, etc., for her short story, Street Sweep. All right, so with that said, we're gonna jump right in, y'all. And our first reader here is going to be Thea Chacamaty. I am delighted to introduce Thea. Thea earned her MFA from the University of Michigan, where she was also a 2019-2020 Postgraduate Zell Fellow. She has been awarded fellowships to Yaddo and In Cahoots, as well as the Henfield Prize, a Hopwood Award, the Kasdan Scholarship, and Michigan Quarterly Review's 2024 Lawrence Foundation Prize. Her work appears, or is forthcoming, in the Southern Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, the Missouri Review, and others. She lives in the Bay Area with her family, where she is at work on a short story collection and a novel. Please, everybody, let's welcome Thea.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Keenan, for organizing this amazing event, and I'm so excited to meet the other fellows for the first time. So it's an honor. I'm just going to read the opening, or a few pages of a short story that came out in the Hopkins Review earlier this year. You can find it online if you want to finish it. I think you can actually read it online as well for free. And the story is called Good Mother. Once my mother had been gone for 2 months, I decided that I would quit smoking. If the smoking didn't kill me, the guilt would. Instead of smoking on the sidewalk like a normal smoking person, I found myself ducking into alleys or concealing myself between the branches of low-hanging pepper trees. When your mother dies of lung cancer, every drag feels like a tiny, private betrayal. My friend Genesis suggested hypnosis while I smoked outside our Monday night Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. "You're doing so well," I said, crushing the butt under my shoe. "I swear, smoking is harder to quit than Coke," Genesis said. "You've got to see this hypnotist in Venice. She's a game changer." Before I'd met Genesis, I promised myself that I wouldn't befriend any more actresses, but who else was there in this town? Besides, she was the only woman close to my age at the meetings, and she was my sponsor. Genesis would receive her birthday chip that night, 5 years sober. I was both awed and ripe with jealousy. Now she'd quit smoking too. Instead of smoking, as I was, she gnawed on a stale piece of supermarket coffee cake. "So," I said, "she waves a pendulum in front of your face and boom, you're under. She lulls you into a trance state. When you wake up, no time has passed." I had to admit it was enticing. The silly assemblage of my many problems overwhelmed. The drinking, my sublet was almost up. I hated my waitressing job. My mother was dead. Quitting smoking through hypnosis seemed like the one thing I could resolve without having to work at it. "How do you know she's even done anything?" I asked. "She might be digging around in your purse for your wallet." "Nancy didn't steal anything, Angie." "Did you hear about that shrink in Burbank who hypnotized women into cleaning his house in the buff?" "Nancy's not like that. She's special. Also," Genesis said, licking crumbs from her fingers, "she's psychic." "Woo-woo psychic?" "Real deal psychic." Genesis lowered her voice. "She told me I would get a call back soon, and then the next day I got one for Scales of Justice." "What's that?" "The Mermaid Show. You know, a district attorney nearly drowns and is saved by a mermaid. They fall in love, but they're from two different worlds. He's got lungs, she has gills. I'm reading for the part of the mermaid's nemesis. She has lobster claws for hands." "It's probably a coincidence." I lit another cigarette. "Jason's a wreck about the pilot. The network hasn't decided if they'll pick it up yet." My brother Jason was, like Genesis, an actor. When my mother went into hospice, I was in a sober living house in the valley, one of those suburban group homes where we were instructed to scrub the floors on our hands and knees in order to teach us to trust the slow process of sobriety. I left only a few days early, but still, early. Jason was off in Vancouver, shooting the pilot for Guinevere's Love, an Arthurian soap where he played a limping knight who would eventually betray the king. What could Jason do? If the show went to series, it would be his big break. Even Mom said so. I tried to tell Helen that Jason had been handling Mom's illness in his own way, which was his right. Since she was the eldest, Helen took care of all the death business. Jason and Helen were feuding to this day. Helen had accused me of taking Jason's side, cradling her long-held insecurity about us. Our dad died when we were kids, and because Jason and I were only a year apart, it made us a little cliquey. Though we didn't look alike, the fact that my mother dressed us like twins in matching baby doll outfits only hammered down Helen's resentment. My mother thought Helen's grudge was cute. They might, Genesis feigned a dramatic cough. Anyway, I don't miss smoking at all. Don't brag, I said. Arrogance gives you wrinkles. So does smoking. We shuffled inside. In the meeting, a woman I'd come to recognize for her wide-armed style of declaration and huge bosom told us that she had finally won visitation rights to see her kids in North Dakota. After the meeting, she would drive all night and all the next day, and then another day until she reached them. Is this why we're encouraged to disclose our nastiest truths? Her face, lit starkly by bluish halogen bulbs, looked suddenly new to me, altered, as if the bones had been rearranged. I wanted to change my own face and to be seen as someone better than I was. When it was my turn to speak, I told the circle about my recent relapse. It happened the day we scattered most of my mother's ashes below the observatory in Griffith Park, sneaking down the hill to avoid the shutterbug tourists. We didn't bother getting a permit. Some ashes still lived in an egg-shaped vessel on Helen's mantle. After the ashes, I got kablamo at a show in Los Feliz and brought the touring band back to my sublet. I left out the part where I slept with the drummer as his bandmates slept on the living room floor. I only told them that now I was back again and that I hadn't had a drink in 37 days. I listened for the room's response, the low hums and hears that sounded in the room, applauding my small accomplishment. The old men tapping their canes against the tile floor and the women's gentle clapping. In the social minutes following the meeting, I asked Genesis about the hypnotist. She's a licensed therapist. Genesis shrugged. What do you care about a license? Can Nancy help me quit drinking too so I don't have to come to any more of these sad meetings? You know it doesn't work like that, she said. Genesis didn't have to tell me. I'd been in and out of the rec centers and empty storefronts for enough time now. The worst part about getting and staying sober was cracking the wall of your own misanthropy. Another girl Genesis sponsored, a tweaky creature in a plum wig, creeped up behind us and stole Genesis' attention. Just call Nancy, okay? You've had a tough year. If anything, it will be good to talk to someone. Genesis cupped my shoulder like she felt sorry for me, then took off with the purple-haired girl. I went to my sister's house the next day to help her clean out the den. We'd been putting it off, and Helen was finally motivated. The kids were off school for the summer, and her husband was traveling for work. Because the mechanical bed took up a third of the room, she had nowhere to park them in front of the TV. Mom didn't have much in the end. She was broke, hence dying in a den. But we folded her silk scarves and put her in practical hats and plastic bins to donate to the out-of-the-closet thrift store. Helen held up a chartreuse cashmere cardigan. Where the fuck did she even wear these sweaters? She probably wore them at her secret job, I said. At the memorial, we discovered that she'd been working as a museum docent in Pasadena for 6 years. After the eulogy, the head curator appeared to us as a teary-eyed wraith. As he clutched my hands, his eyes begged my sympathy, as if she were his mother, not mine. While alive, my mother was a good liar, and she kept secrets. When we were kids, my mother would lock us in the apartment when she had to work on set. She was a costume mistress, telling us that the babysitter would be there soon, but no babysitter ever showed up. When our dog Quincy ate her La Mer eye cream, she returned him to the shelter, but told us poor Quincy had been run over. Once she left us. She went to Montana for a month. Our dad said she was working on location, but she reappeared tanned, cheeks chapped, in turquoise jewelry. She always claimed to be a natural blonde, but I had read comic books at her feet in the salon every fourth Saturday of my youth. When we were bad, she told us that we'd been adopted or else threatened to give us away. She forced Helen to get braces, even though she didn't need them. When I was 13, after she had gained 10 pounds, she coached me to fake the symptoms of ADHD for an Adderall prescription. When Jason came out, she told him she wasn't paying for charm school. We didn't even know how old she was until she died. Turns out she was older than we thought, much older. When I went into rehab, she said I'd be better off going cold turkey in a motel. It would be cheaper, and I wouldn't have to listen to the sob stories of junkies day in and day out. Even so, we didn't like being motherless. Sometimes when I talked to Helen about how Mom would, to some, be considered a bad mother, we chanted affirmations stating otherwise. Yes, she was selfish. She lied. But she kept outside harm away, and we were fed and clothed. Isn't that what good mothers did?
Thank you, Thea. That was wonderful. The mixture of like wry humor and subtle, nuanced characterization is something that is very apparent in that piece, and that was so apparent in your application materials. And so, I think I speak for everybody here, both in person and online, to say that I'm, really looking forward to seeing your work on bookshelves, right, sooner than later. I also want to say, because we got a slightly late start, and we do have all this nice food here. If you want, I can like slow walk this. The next couple minutes, if you guys want to like walk fast over there and get something to eat, I don't think mind too much if we just anybody. Feel free. I can just like talk about things for a couple minutes. I love talking about the Steinbeck Fellows program. So, what's that? Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, my improv skills are not legendary. It is though. It has been a real treat to see this. To actually be on this side of a program like this, and a contest essentially like this. I'm a writer, just like most of the people in this room are, and so I've not been selected many times in these, and it's sort of a shadowy process, right, on that side of the ledger, and it is it's been a real education for me. I've been a reader for literary magazines and journals and stuff like that, but to really be not just on the inside but in the coordinator position, and to get this to see all the inner workings of a process that is this extensive, months-long, exhaustive judging process. You see how difficult the decisions are. You see how many incredible writers there are, right, in this region and all over the place. And thus it gives me, I really cherish and am really humbled by the chance to work with these writers. And so with that, I want to introduce our next wonderful writer. Chino Lee Chung is a queer Chinese-Mexican personal essay writer and is currently working on a collection of essays that integrate his social activism with his intersectional identities. He is a recipient of the 2024-2025 San Jose State Steinbeck Fellowship and holds an MFA from the California College of Arts and San Francisco State University. His work appears in Invitation to Joy, Writers Creating in Community, in Genderqueer, Voices from Beyond the Sexual Binary, Our Family Coalition newsletter, and he is an assistant fiction editor at 14 Hills Literary Magazine. Please let's welcome Chino.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming. It's beautiful to see everybody out there. I'm going to read an essay that I've been working on for a while, but I just completed. It's called F for Female. I stand behind a hard, shiny podium and look up at the 4 rows of California senators fanned out in a semicircle in front of me. My right eyelid spasms so insistently it closes every time, and it's sharp against my eyeball. It feels like a little animal trying to get out. I'm sure everyone can see it. I lift my thick black glasses and rub my eye with 3 fingertips. The spasm subsides to a dull pull, but then comes back full force. I ignore it and keep reading my statement. I want to be taken seriously. I'm testifying in support of AB 1577, the Respect After Death Act, in the name of my brother and best friend, Christopher Lee. I take a short breath. Christopher was a visionary trailblazer. A big drop of sweat plunks down on the white paper, a miniature gray lake that spreads over the words, as female, painful to, and chosen family. The spot curls in and the edges turn a bright purple. I feel a fluttering in my chest as I read on. Whose 2 sisters stopped talking to him when he came out as trans. I thought of that day I met them at the Neptune Society and how their transphobia pushed me to speak up and be here today. I take a deep breath and continue. Christopher was an artist and activist. He co-founded the Transgender Film Festival in 1997, which continues to this day. I hear my last 5 words, trembling and fluttery, and remember what Sasha, the trans attorney from Transgender Law Project, said this morning. Find the person who looks the friendliest, the one holding eye contact with you, the one smiling or nodding their head, and look directly at them. Sacramento was a place I used to pass through on my way to Reno and would only stop for the 2 cheeseburger meal at McDonald's because I loved the bright, crunchy pickles. But today I got up at 5 a.m., ironed my long-sleeve blue dress shirt, ran shiny gel through my short black hair, picked up Sasha, and drove the 90 miles from my home in Oakland to Sacramento. I liked Sasha from the moment we met because when I asked if she liked being a lawyer, she said, "I love it, but really, I'm not a very good one." I scanned the 4 rows of California senators sitting in front of me, looking for the one friendly face. A beefy white guy with dark eyes pulled together in a scowl, a woman with light brown skin whose eyebrows are raised up, but looks down, a thin white guy whose glazed look stares past me, George Nakano, President Pro Tem, who leans forward and looks right at me, his eyes shining. President Nakano smiles, and my shoulders drop. For my 50th birthday, he stayed up all night rebuilding my front porch to surprise me in the morning. He was the best man at my wedding. He was at our home for his last Thanksgiving feast. My eyelid thumped softly. Christopher lived his life in all ways as a man, and he changed his driver's license and passport to reflect this. A month after Christopher died, I picked up his ashes and death certificate, his last official document. It looked like a wedding license with intricate blue webbing around the edges and a pink background. The print was so small I had to lift my glasses to read the words. It was the first time I had ever seen Christopher's birth name, and it was weird to see it printed in black and white. Like it was a fact of life, when in fact it was so much of who Christopher was not and has never been. Number 1, name of dissident. That word. First name given, Chris with a K. Number 2, middle. That was blank. Number 3, last, family, Lee. AKA, also known as, include full name, first, middle, and last. Christina Ann Thorne Lee. Your name is who you are, and it holds multiple identities, culture, ethnicity, country of origin, and gender. Your name is how you introduce yourself, one of the first things people know about you, and how you're bound to your ancestral heritage. It's how you carry yourself in the world. It's how you answer when you're called. I asked my friends to call me Chino 13 years ago because my birth name, Maybeck, didn't fit with who I was anymore. It was contradictory to my identity, how I wanted to be seen in the world, and how I interacted with others. I liked Chino because it was a cool name, and it encompassed all of who I was, Chinese, Mexican, and male identified. It was a recognition of my Latinx roots and family history because even though I was a quarter Mexican, I looked mostly Chinese. I kept reading Christopher's death certificate. Number 4, date of birth, 9/4/1964. Number 5, age years, 48. Number 6, sex, F. Female? It stood out bright on the pink page, spotlighted like a flashing neon sign. I sat there frozen in the hard funeral chair, staring at the letter F, buzzing with shock and anger. Female? This can't be right. It said male on all his legal documents. I told the coroner, I told everybody. Christopher was trans and identified as male. This is wrong. They got it wrong. Christopher was the first trans Mexican person I had ever met at a time when I was still afraid to come out as a lesbian to the world. He was so much who he was, unapologetic and fierce in his identities. He was Chinese, Polish, mixed race, transgender, short, skinny, from San Diego, and male. He never forgot who he was and embraced both his masculine and feminine sides. He gave me the courage to keep traveling my journey. Into my masculinity. Christopher earned his gender marker, and I was going to do what I could to change this injustice. I continue my testimony. Christopher was only 48 years old when he died. My eyes sting with tears. He was struggling with mental health and was trying so hard, but in the end took his own life. I blink back the tears and look up. Listing him as female on his death certificate is disrespectful to his memory and legacy, and it's deeply painful to me, to his chosen family, and the communities he was so much a part of. I feel that familiar wash of sadness flowing from the top of my head, down my face, and into my arms, like the shuddery feeling you get when you first know you're sick with the flu. I wipe the tears from my eyes. I first met Chris in 1992 when he moved to San Francisco from San Diego. He was a butch lesbian and asked everyone to call him he, even though his voice was high like a woman's, and his big round nipples poked through his muscle tee on both sides of Sunny in sunny San Diego. Chris was 5 feet 3 inches tall and had freckles, an Asian with freckles. I was part of the Asian Pacific lesbian community back then and was embracing my identities as a Chinese Mexican dyke. I cut my long black hair into a shoulder-length mullet because I wanted to look more butch and felt safe in this community, where other Asian lesbians shared similar cultural experiences with me. I was instantly drawn to Chris when I met him, but had never heard of a woman, even a masculine woman, wanting to be called he. There was only a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, and he or she. At first, I refused to use male pronouns with Chris, but by 1994, I was calling him he, and we had become good friends. One day, Chris asked me to meet him at the El Toyonese taco truck at 19th and Harrison in the Mission. Man, they have the best breakfast burritos here. Crunchy hash browns, 2 pieces of bacon, huge. Chris spread his hands out 1.5 feet wide in front of him. You'll see, it's on me. Wow, okay, I'm hungry. I smiled and patted my belly. It sounded like a flat drum. We got in line behind 3 guys with shiny yellow hard hats. It was a sunny morning in San Francisco, and the bright green trees cast cool shadows on us. Let's get our burritos and go sit on the steps across the street. I want to talk to you about something, Chris said. Okay, I said, and wondered what kind of scheme he was going to propose now. When he got something in his head, he wouldn't let it go, no matter what I said or did. Most of the time, it involved me, like the time he wanted me to date Mil-Young Cho. I thought she was way above my league, with straight black hair that shone blue in the sun, hazel eyes that looked deep into your soul, and so political and smart working at the Asian Women's Shelter. I said no, but Chris still went over to Mil-Young to say I wanted a date. I ran over and pulled Chris away, saying, "No, no, no," as Mill Young watched us with her head tilted to one side, full lips open a little, and her perfectly arched eyebrows pulled up with a, "What are these fools doing?" kind of look. Chris and I sat down, and I felt the coolness of the concrete steps seep up through my sweatpants. I wrapped a thick napkin around the bottom of my burrito because it was too hot, opened the tinfoil at the top, and peeled it down like a banana. My mouth watered right away with the aroma of salty bacon, lemony scrambled eggs, and tangy red salsa. "I want you to call me Christopher now," Chris said, and took a big bite out of the top of his burrito. A thin line of red salsa ran down the side of his chin. "Christopher?" I asked, and thoughts ran through my head all at once. I loved him like a brother, but I couldn't call him that. Wasn't calling her he enough? Where did he come up with these crazy schemes anyway? What was he going to do? Ask our whole community to call him Christopher? His co-workers? His family? What if his voice got too high and he was busted out by some macho guy? "I'm going to start on testosterone," Christopher said. "Testosterone?" I wondered how that would change him and if we could still be friends, because I was going to stay a lesbian. I was just starting to hear about butch dykes who started on testosterone. Their voices got deep, like a man's, and they grew full-on beards. How would Chris fit into the Asian lesbian community like that? "I'm starting next week," Christopher said. "Next week?" I asked. "You're asking too many questions again," Christopher said. "Oh, sorry," I said and laughed, a quick rush of breath in and out through my nose. "I guess I did ask you to tell me that." I just couldn't believe Chris was saying this to me. I wanted him to stay just like he was, my best friend. I didn't want him to turn into a guy, but I knew I could never say that to him. He was the most masculine person I knew, and I admired him for being himself, but I knew he would never be accepted. He went too far and took too many chances. I wanted him to be careful and safe, like me. It was impossible to come out. You could lose your family and friends. I came out as a lesbian to my mom 6 years ago, and we never talked about it again. She told me not to tell my dad or siblings because it would hurt them. It felt like a shame secreted between us. Did my family notice my changes, my masculinity? "I found a great doctor at San Francisco General, and she's a lesbian," said Christopher. He wiped the red salsa from the side of his mouth with a neat white napkin, and that was the first time I noticed how perfectly straight his teeth were. "She's a butch dyke, tall. I'm going to start with a half dose right in the butt using a humongo syringe." He balled his right hand into a fist and punched the flat end, thud, right into his thigh. The sound hung in the air. I looked over at Chris. He had dark brown hair, a smooth baby face, and eyes that crinkled at the side when he smiled. I knew he was going to start on a half dose because he was in recovery and knew about moderation. We were alike in so many ways, both in recovery, both mixed race Asian, both masculine of center, but so different in others. Chris worked hard to be seen as a man. He wore his hair short and slicked back with dark cholo grease. I cut my hair shorter every year and now had a flat top mullet. Chris wore bright striped boys' t-shirts that made him look even more masculine, like a teenage boy. I embraced my identities as an Asian lesbian and wore politically themed t-shirts like Asian Pacific Sisters and Queer and Asian. And once I even saw Chris in his boxers as he was undressing to take a shower. They were like the ones my dad wore from Kmart, checkered with a stiff polyester blend. I wore breathable cotton underwear to prevent yeast infections. I was afraid of change, and I was scared Chris was going too fast. I didn't know what would happen to him. If he grew hair on his face and his voice got deep, wouldn't the hormones change the rest of his body too? His bones, his heart, his brain, his mental health? Really, I was just scared he'd leave me behind. It took me four long years to grow into my identity as an Asian lesbian, and I couldn't have done it without community all around to guide me and reflect my experiences back to me. I owed my life, my safety, who I was, and who I would become to this community. And lately, I found myself changing even more. I identified as androgynous like many of my friends, but I felt more masculine and wanted to find a way to come out into that world. I worked as a union welder in San Francisco and had just started on the new main library.
Oh, just give it a second.
Okay.
Attention, the library will close to the public in 20 minutes. Please check out your materials now. After 8 p.m., the library will be available to SJSU Spartans of current tarot cards for 24 hours. Once again, the library will close to the public in 20 minutes and the library will remain open for SJSU students for 24 hours.
Thank you. I worked as a union welder in San Francisco and had just started at the new main library, welding handrail bases around the big atrium. Stone Butch Blues had just come out, and I longed to be one of those butches who got off their union jobs, took a shower, and swaggered into the bar with a fine femme on their arm, their short sleeves rolled up and hair slicked back. But even more than that, I wanted to be confident in who I was, strong enough to show my vulnerabilities and still be loved by that fine femme, to do what it took to be all of myself, like Chris was doing now. He wasn't afraid to be who he was. He knew from the moment I met him, and he had been doing what it took to become himself all along. The rest of the world just had to catch up. I lifted my half burrito in the air like a mug of beer. Here's to my best friend Christopher. You'll look good in a Fu Manchu. I smiled and my eyes were wet. I felt close to him and wished I could be more like him all at the same time. Ah so, Rito Glasshopper. Christopher balled up a bit of tinfoil from his burrito and held it out in his flat palm. Snatch this pebble from my hand, and you too will see the light. Yeah, right, assholio. I waited until Christopher's fingers curled in, then snatched the ball before he could react. Ha, gotcha, I said, closed my fist, and pumped it up and down in victory. Now, my hands clenched with fear and anxiety on the floor in front of the California Supreme Court. The first out lesbian Speaker of the Assembly and sponsor of the bill stands at her podium, a foot higher than mine. No wonder I'm so nervous. The power in this room. Everybody's higher than me. Looking up at all these senators in rows that go higher and higher is like paying homage. That, and I just came out as trans for the first time in public. At first, when I met with the Transgender Law Project in 2013, I didn't think I could ever testify in front of the Senate and Congress. I hated speaking in public, and it made me so nervous I'd stutter and forget all my lines. Sasha told me I didn't have to memorize my testimony and could read directly from the page. She gave me an example from another bill they passed. The first line gave the person's name and said they were transgender. I wanted to come out as transgender, but when I was with my trans friends, I felt like an imposter. A trans identity was earned through a lifetime of testosterone injections and surgeries that changed your body forever. I had done none of these. I passed as a man full-time when I traveled outside the Bay Area, but I could choose not to when I didn't want the questioning, misgendering, stares, body scan, and outright disdain. In the end, I decided to keep the first line, change it to my name, and say I was trans, because it gave me more authority to testify for my trans friend. But I was scared to come out, especially to these powerful people who decide the law. I retired 2 years ago as a firefighter from San Francisco Fire Department. I had a friend, Tristan, who was the first trans person in the department, and he transitioned on the job. He was harassed so much he quit. The men used she, her pronouns, forced him to use a woman's bathroom, and left him to work alone during fires. I knew I couldn't come out in the department and was already so guarded from having to continually prove myself as a small, weak Asian woman. I had too much at stake, my safety, my reputation, and my livelihood, that I decided to wait until I left the department to change my name and use the men's bathroom full-time. A few more steps to becoming who I was. In the last few months, a string of transgender deaths has been recorded across the nation, Senator Atkins continues to read from a neat Shocked that 21 trans people have died this year, and I wonder how many took their own life, like Christopher. Violence and discrimination seem to get worse whenever inroads are made, and a law had just passed that allowed gender changes on Social Security cards and passports. And being able to live your life as who you really are isn't too much for anyone to ask. That's all Taylor and Sage wanted, and it's what Christopher and Kaite and so many others have dedicated their lives to, Senator Atkins says. I feel tears pushing against the bottoms of my eyelids, and the inside of my nose burns.
Attention, the library will close to the public in 15 minutes. Please check our materials now.
I'll read fast. It's been 3 years since Christopher died, and I think about him every day when I see bright orange California poppies spring up through broken cracks of dark asphalt, or when my creaky back gate closes on its own behind me. I came into my masculinity with Christopher right by my side, and he started calling me he when I was scared to come out, and still using she pronouns for myself. Christopher was never afraid to be who he was, and that made me not afraid. Once we are deceased, we are often at the mercy of others to treat us with dignity. The very least we can do is to ensure individuals are given basic human dignity by honoring their authentic selves when they pass, so that more pain is not inflicted upon grieving loved ones or the community, Senator Atkins concludes. A week after Christopher died, I went to the Neptune Society to arrange his cremation. I was told to come at 10 a.m., and his sisters had already been there an hour when I arrived. It was the first time I had ever met them, and I didn't know what to expect. Sabrina, who looked like Christopher, with brown hair and freckles, looked at her slim gold wristwatch. We've already been here an hour. I got stuff to do. Yes, we're pretty much done here. I paid for everything already, said Roberta, Christopher's oldest sister. She looked very Chinese with long silver and black hair and sat with her arms crossed high on her chest with both eyes raised and eyebrows pulled up. There's one more thing, said the funeral director, who wore a thick brown and maroon dress that looked like a medieval tapestry. There's a matter of Chris's ashes and death certificate. They'll be ready for pickup in 10 days. Chino can take care of that. I don't want to have any more to do with that, said Roberta. She looked at me for confirmation. I felt myself staring at her and dropped my eyes. That was her brother and my best friend Christopher, the best man at my wedding, who took several minutes to make sure my tie was perfectly centered and told me how radiant I looked. His words were the ones I heard in my head as my wedding ceremony started. I looked up at her. Christopher. His name's Christopher, I said. Roberta sat with her back stiff and straight. I saw her head flick my way with the tiniest of movements. We did our part, said Sabrina, and folded her hands in her legs. I stared at Sabrina. No wonder Christopher was estranged from his sisters, I thought. He's gone, and the least they could do is show a little respect. Say his name, Christopher, or even Chris. They'll never see him again, not in this lifetime. I'll never see him again, and that familiar sadness washed down my eyes and nose. Can you take it from here, Chino? Roberta asked. It felt like Roberta was at least trying, and she said my name. Okay, I said. That's what I came here to do, to honor Christopher. Okay, there you have it then, said Sabrina. It's all settled. She slapped the table with both hands and stood up to go. Wow, okay, I said. It's like she couldn't wait to get this over with. It made my head feel dizzy. I took off my glasses, closed my eyes, and rubbed my eyes with my fist closed. Well, what do you expect? Demanded Sabrina. She came to my home with my children and said she was going to turn into a man. Give me a break. Sabrina looked around at Roberta, then the funeral director, then me. I heard her teeth grit together. My kids weren't safe, she said. I stared at her, and my mouth wouldn't move. Where was her humanity? Christopher was their blood relative. She lived in San Francisco and Roberta in New York City, cities that had the biggest trans communities in the world. How could they be so clueless? Open your eyes, look around you, I thought. We're the ones redefining gender, creating new language, how we live in this world and think about our roles in society. It's the trans and non-binary communities that are throwing away tired old notions of what it means to be a man or a woman and recreating what we could be as human beings, as people. They could use some of that, I thought. Back in the courtroom, I sit in the front row of a big theater-like space watching the rest of the hearing with Sasha and a young trans-masculine attorney from Equality, California. I'm sitting between them and we're huddled together, talking softly. It's the opposition's turn to testify now, Sasha says. She's tall and thin with deep-set, sincere eyes. I heard they got someone from the Funeral Directors Association, and they had to go all the way down to San Diego to find them. Hello, everyone. A white guy with long brown hair pulled back in a thick ponytail lifts his hand and waves to the senators. His bold black glasses push past his narrow face. Senator Nakano waves back. My name is Jeff Jorgensen, and I represent the California Funeral Directors Association. He has a high, soft voice, and everyone leans in to hear him. He shifts from his right to his left foot and looks out at the audience. We're here to talk about AB 1577 because the regulations that address gender identity for coroners and funeral directors are unclear. My throat is tight, and I feel it closing. I lean in closer to Sasha. If the rules are unclear, they shouldn't have based Christopher's gender only on anatomy. They knew he was trans. My words are clipped from the top of my throat, and I feel a small buzz of anger between my eyebrows and deep in my chest. I know, whispers Sasha. Her eyes are pulled down and nose crinkled with worry. Jeff Jorgensen continues. As it stands now, the law states that the family, not the deceased, is the client of the funeral home. We are his family, I say, and run my hand in front of Sasha, the young attorney, and myself. We're the ones here for Christopher, fighting for what's right, and here you are. I look at Sasha and the young trans-mask attorney, and you haven't even met him. Tears fill my eyes because they'll never get to meet him, and because we're here together trying to change the law for our communities, for the ones we lost. Christopher fought for what's right. You would have liked him. Sasha reaches out and gently lays her hand on top of mine. Her hand is long and soft, and I lay my other hand on top of hers. We sit together like that, listening. But the fact of the matter is that most funeral directors and coroners have never received any gender identification training, and I haven't either, says Jeff Jorgensen. I sit up at attention because something's different in the room. The air feels cooler and fresher somehow, and I feel my breath stretch deep into the bottom of my lungs. It's like something new just entered the room. I keep hold of Sasha's hand and reach out to hold the young trans-masculine attorney's hand too. He looks at me and squeezes my hand in reassurance. Jeff continues. It's safe to say that the funeral industry is about 20 to 30 years behind today's cultural concerns, and so is mortuary training. He reaches up to wipe the sweat from his forehead. And I'd like to add that as it stands now, most funeral directors serve the 60 to 90-year-old demographic. What's he saying? I ask Sasha. I don't know. It's almost as if he's on our side, says Sasha. I try to smile, but my face is tight with anxiety, and the ends of my mouth barely move up. We hold each other's hands tighter. If there are no plans set in place by the deceased and without clear guidelines around gender, the family gets whatever they want, says Jeff. That's what happened with Christopher. He looks over at the audience, and I swear he looks right at me. A little thrill travels down my spine, like when my third grade teacher looked at me from the front of the classroom, like I was her favorite classmate. I look over at Sasha, and her eyes are open and bright. I feel a tingling warmth spread down from my head to my chest like a favorite blanket. There's something important and deep happening right now, like the folks here are on our side. Senator Nakano, who smiled and made me feel like I had something to say, Tony Atkins, who's been in the good fight for a long time, and now Jeff. I think the tides are changing, says Sasha. She stands up and holds her hand out to help me up. I take her hand and stand next to her. The young transmasculine attorney stands up too. He's shorter than me and can't be older than 30, probably 25, with that smooth baby face and peach fuzz on his upper lip. He looks up at me, his eyebrows raised and eyes open wide with respect. He's looking right at me, and I look away, embarrassed. What's he seeing? Is it my gray hair sprouting out more every day, or the bags that grow puffier under my eyes? My trembling testimony, or Christopher's story that gives me legitimacy? I don't know, but I look back at the young attorney, and he smiles at me. I don't know if I deserve his respect, but I know Christopher would be proud of me if he were here, and I smile back.
Thank you so much. That was. This is part. By the way, this is part of a long tradition. For those.
After 8 p.m., the library will be available to SJC's partners with current tower cards until 24 hours. Once again, the library will close to the public in 5 minutes, and the library will remain open to SJC's partners for 24 hours.
Those online, this is very important information for you guys to know. This for folks who have been fans of the Steinbeck Fellows program since before the pandemic. You remember these these bulletins. It's just part of the experience. So, but Chino, thank you for that deeply important, riveting, and also like funny and humanizing and essay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keenan.
And I want to say that we are going to have a Q&A after our third reader in a minute. So if you have if you're thinking of questions, just formulate those questions. Folks online, you can also, if there are a couple questions online, you can also just start posting those to the chat as well. Okay, so we have one more reader. Joe Dornich, and I'm pronouncing that correctly, correct? All right. Is the author of the short story collection, The Ways We Get By. His stories have won contests and fellowships from the Masters Review, Carve Magazine, South Central MLA, Key West Literary Seminars, and the South Carolina Academy of Authors, among others. Joe lives in California and teaches at CSU San Bernardino. Hometown. All right. Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'll probably do it off the dome, but I can't talk it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's right here. Boom. And enlarge it for you. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you, Keenan and Janice, Tim, the people that I've met, and of course all the other people that I have not met that make this, that are integral to this process. I appreciate all of that. Thank you all you guys who came here today to support us. It's very nice of you to spend your Tuesday evening with us. And all of you guys online that are watching, including my parents. Hi guys. So I'm going to read the opening pages of what brought me to Find People, which is a novel currently titled Intentional Accidents. The man standing beside my car, rapping his knuckles against my driver's side window and shouting through the glass, he would like to know, what in the fuck is my fucking problem? He's a lot like the others. I keep my hands at 10 and 2 and stare straight ahead. I watch the cars that have escaped the accumulating gridlock, the way they motor down the great gray ribbon of the northbound 405 as it recedes into the distance. This man, who now crouches so his face looms large in my window, also wants to know what moronic asshole taught me how to drive. I glance up at my rear view where his black BMW fills the frame. He's left the door open, the keys in the ignition, and I can just make out the ding, ding, ding over the rumble of the freeway, his curious shouting. I remind myself, I'm not here to anger this man. That's not the point of all of this. He fulfilled his role the moment he drove his car into the back of mine. So I turn and face him. Beamer Man appears to be in his mid-30s, a few years older than me, though he looks better, healthier. His blonde hair is styled in a swoopy dollop that suggests more than a few high-end hair products. The Angelino sun is twinned in the lenses of his aviators. "Hello," he says. "Earth to dipshit." Again, I remind myself the job is over. Further engagement, further
Attention,
enragement.
The library is now closed to the public. Extended study hours are now in effect. SJSU Spartans with current talk cards may remain for 24 hours. And once again, the library is closed to the public. The library is now open to the public.
A lot of great reading. A lot of great readings here tonight.
The
Yeah.
last one of those. Library's open.
What time does the library close? Again, I remind myself the job is over. Further engagement, further enragement is unwise and unadvised. I am, as Hayden often reminds me, out here to simply get hit, to create congestion and be the catalyst for extraction. Nothing more. I'm certainly not out here to model manners or freeway etiquette. But then again, who among us doesn't harbor some improbable fairy tale fantasy of being a model? Something in me longs to saunter down the runway, flaunt the latest fashions of karmic comeuppance. I lower the window, I make my eyes go wide, put a little tremble in my lips. "I can't feel my legs," I say. Beamer Man's face slips and all traces of his smug bravado vanish. "What? Bullshit, there's no way I barely hit you." This is true. It was a routine rear end, a minor fender bender, no different than the dozens before it. "Then why can't I feel my legs? Why can't I feel my legs?" I say over and over as I stare at my lap in disbelief, slapping my palms against my lifeless thighs. "I barely hit you," he says again and again. "My legs," I counter, each of us committed to our mantras. Beamer Man is reeling. I can read his thoughts as clearly if they were printed in one of those bubbles from my childhood comic books. He's weighing the cost of the medical bills, the series of lawsuits, the optical impact of me wheeling my half-numbed hole into the courtroom, how it'll wipe him out, how I'll have to pawn his watch collection, sell off the wine cellar. And then, miraculously, I begin pumping my legs, bobbing up and down on the balls of my feet. I am the kid on the car trip who desperately has to pee. "I'm just messing with you," I say as I open the door, bound out of the car. Beamer Man's initial relief gives way to rage. A vein throbs at his temple and his head shakes ever so slightly. His meringue hair threatens to topple. He threatens to sue. Guys like Beamer Man are always ready to cry lawyer at the slightest offense or inconvenience. They're the Chicken Littles of litigation. "Sue me for what?" I say. "You rear-ended me." Then I reach into my pocket, hand him my printed copy of California Vehicle Code 2250, Basic Speed Law, and 21703, Following Too Closely. I don't know which bothers Beamer Man more, the fact that these two laws make him unequivocally responsible for our accident, or the fact that my copy of them is laminated. "Who the hell carries this around?" he says. "Who are you?" "I'm no one," I tell him, and it's the first true thing I've said today. We inspect the damage to my car. Red plastic pieces of what used to be my brake light litter the freeway. They glint in the sunlight. My trunk is accordioned into ripples of bent metal. It's not that Beamer Man even hit me that hard, but Hayden had any interior support structures removed to maximize impact effects. As he likes to say, optics are everything. Cars crawl past, drivers stare, unsatisfied by the lack of carnage, how it fails to justify their inconvenience. "I didn't even realize you had stopped," Beamer Man says. I nod, contort my face into something I hope resembles empathy. It's easy to cause accidents in LA. Despite the laws, most people are driving distracted, staring at their phones, or sipping from the latest caffeinated concoctions. I've seen aspiring actors drive while studying a script, focused on enunciating their range, their depth, honing their thespian abilities. Other people drive with pets on their laps and then post-accident pretend there isn't a concussed Pomeranian staggering around the floorboard. Having a button beneath the dash that kills the brake lights also helps. We all associate that flashing red with slowing, stopping. Without it, we assume the car in front of us is moving regardless of what it is actually doing. Hayden calls this the delusion of momentum. Hayden has a name for everything. Beamer Man and I go through the futile ritual of exchanging insurance information as the slog of traffic keeps growing, threatening to overtake the horizon. Futile because one, I'm never going to call, will never file a claim. And two, Hayden, the company, already have his information. All of it. Everything. Traffic makes monsters of us all. It's the incremental movement and how, as our foot is forced to rise and fall against the brake pedal, each minute is magnified. It's the flare of brake lights, the sighs, the calf cramps. Some of us crane our necks over the steering wheel, searching for causes or cessation of the glut. Others consign themselves to sitting and stewing and staring at the ass end of the asshole in front of them. Regardless of the approach, our naturally short fuses are circumcised by the circumstance. An outlet, a release for that rage is required. And so, after Beamerman pulls away, I sit on the ruined trunk, perch my feet on the crumpled bumper, and avail myself to the fresh wrath of each car as it lurches past. Everyone stares. Some scream obscenities that are silenced by the cocoon of their cars, which would normally be a small mercy, though I've learned to read lips. Even the kids get in on the hate. They sit tall in their car seats to spot this interloper, irritation twisting their otherwise unlined little faces. Though not as experienced as their parents in the various countenances of contempt, there is a natural, instinctual element to their loathing of a stranger that is fascinating. Of course, it would be more fascinating if it weren't directed at me. Others stare through me, as though I'm merely a stain on their windshields, another object of unpleasantness constituting their commute. I understand their rage, however passive or aggressive it may be. Most of these people are probably on their way to somewhere they don't want to be in the first place. Traffic's marginal movement reminds them of their own stalled progress at success or happiness or just being a decent person. How somewhere along the way the compromises accumulated, the desires got diluted, and lately it's become harder to shake the feeling that life is taking so goddamn forever. Or maybe that's just me. There are those who wonder why I don't drive away. Their queries span from, why don't you get that piece of shit out of my way, to the less curious but equally insistent, move that piece of shit. I would if I could, but I can't. All of Hayden's cars have been retrofitted to stall at the most modest of impacts. Karthik from engineering once bragged to me that our cars would even seize if bombarded by a hearty dollop of bird droppings. I assume he's right, I've never had the experience. Of course, the longer I'm out here, the greater the gridlock and the more opportunities for extraction. An inert auto also protects me from the rare good Samaritan who pulls over, offers to help, but this too is an experience I've yet to possess. And then there's the disparity at play. The longer people are stuck in a throng of traffic, the greater their expectations of its cause. After miles of congestion, minutes that may have metastasized into hours, they expect to see something glorious and terrifying, and in that terrifying glory, find some answers. A justification for the glut, a rationale for the ruined day. Hayden calls this the satisfaction of a school bus fire. They expect to come upon chaos and crumpled carnage, my limbs julienned by jagged metal. Or perhaps the hole in my windshield where my unbelted body burst through and now lies heaped, twitching, staining the pavement with my various vitals. So, imagine their disappointment when they finally arrive at this gridlock genesis, only to find some poor postured loser sitting on the trunk of a car, and occasionally what I hope is occasionally offering what I hope is a lighthearted bounce to the shoulders, as if to say, life, right? Imagine how this fails to quench their thirst for automotive mutilation. Imagine their exasperated rage. I am the worst part of someone's day. So many someones. By the time the tow truck arrives, tows me back to the office, and the 204 bus deposits me outside of my apartment building, it's just after the sun has set, but just before they light up the billboards. They are a magical few moments. Inside, I find Carl materialized on my couch and an emaciated polar bear trudging through what's left of the tundra. Since Carl can't use the remote, can't enjoy the option of options, he's stuck watching the same channel until I come home. This means it is imperative that each morning we choose one that offers a robust narrative range while maintaining premium quality. I want the length and the girth, if you know what I mean, Carl said that first time, winked. I do. Carl likes guys, likes the innuendo that comes with liking guys. For a while, Carl's criteria was met by the War Channel, but this quickly led to tirades about the Eastern Front, Carl's insistence that I accept the superiority of the Soviet T-34 tank even over the much-lauded German Panzers. Something about how the synthetic oil of those German tanks froze in the harsh Soviet winters, how they stalled on the Russian steppes, how this was a turning point in Operation Barbarossa. I explained to Carl that I didn't care one way or the other, but he demanded I embrace this historical fact, his position on this immovable, much like those inferior German tanks. It was clear we needed to change, and so for now, it's the Nature Channel. How was your day? Carl says, as a polar bear trumps after a trash ban enlivened by Arctic winds. But before I can answer, he continues, I'm just kidding. I don't care. Then he vanishes into thin air. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, thank you so much. That was hilarious. Well, rather than my further commentary, I want to invite all three of our writers up to the stage, Chino, Joe, and Thea. We have 3 chairs here. We are going to have a short Q&A. I know we're running a few minutes after time, but that's okay. I think that more important than anything, the audience members, both in person and online, want to hear from you, want to know about your process, right? Your goals going forward with your work. So yeah, please come on up. And again, folks online, if you have questions for the writers, just throw them in the chat. Also, right now want to just briefly give a shout out to our current grad student fellows, Taylor Hooten, Jesus Uloa, Charmaine's son, Liam Leslie, who is in attendance right now. Thank you, Liam, for helping us out here. Jake Olhausen and Christina Molfino. All right, so directly to you, Thea. And it comes from Peggy Pollard, who is a current MFA student here at San Jose State. That's actually just Peggy saying that, great story, Thea. Sorry. Okay, we don't have a question. All right, and so, if there are questions, anybody from the audience? I know I always have questions, but yeah.
Writing is hard. Why do you do it? Really? Like, what's the main reason?
Well, for me, I retired from my job as a firefighter. It was a typical, what am I gonna do with my life? And how am I gonna pass my time? People, even though everyone waits for retirement and it's lovely, like the first year, most people are depressed, kind of moping around going, what am I gonna do with my life? So I thought, I just thought, what is it that I've always loved to do? And that's what came to me is writing. And I was like, maybe I'll just take that up again, because I used to love to do it, and started taking classes like at Laney College, City College, and at the College of Alameda, actually, my teacher there, she said, why don't you go for your MFA, and then you can even learn more. And, because I was getting a lot of really positive feedback from my writing, and so I started on that journey, and I was in school for like 10 years, and through that, just learned how to write better, learned how to love writing, learned how to write every day, every morning. And I don't think I could live without it. It's one of my main loves in life.
Anybody else? Yeah, it's a great question for everybody.
I guess I agree. It's really hard. I think I started liking writing when I stopped caring as much about what would happen to it when I was done. I always wrote really self-consciously for years, up until actually very recently, maybe the last few years. And I just wrote because it was the only thing I was good at, I think, growing up. I could write a good essay, push through, any class, like even if I maybe wasn't doing very well, and if I could write a good essay, and then, I could get a good grade, and then I, go from there. But I always loved reading, and then I started falling in love with the idea of being a writer, and then I soon realized that was a bad idea. And then I think I just grew to have it's like a natural sort of process, sort of like exercise or eating for me now. And honestly, I feel really, really unhappy if I'm not writing regularly. So I guess
I do it because I feel like I have to, but I often wish that I could do something else. That I was good at something else that maybe made money.
Joe, any thoughts?
What's the question? Why do I like writing?
Writing is hard. Why do you do it?
Why do I do it? Yeah, I mean, sure, like a lot of you guys here, there's certain stories or later novels that I'd read that was just like super taken with, or like reading something, you read an amazing sentence, you like put a little thing in the margins, you highlight it, you write it down, and just like the appreciation and envy of that was a thing that kind of made me want to try it myself, in the same way that I think people pick up a guitar because they hear a song that kicks ass, and I'm like, man, I want to learn how to play the guitar, like I want to learn how to write like some of these people, and so I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, but that's what it is. Just I wanted to get in the game and see if I could kind of do my version of all these things that inspired me and still do. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And any other questions folks might have? Yeah, Ryan in the back.
Yeah. This could be for any of you, but specifically thinking about Chino, your story, which was just incredible. Love hearing those kinds of stories and those truths being spoken out loud. But with a lot of my students, I'm often integrating a lot of like essay memoirs and wanting them to then talk about their lived experiences so that they have a launching point where they feel comfortable writing. But I always get this question of, well, how do I know, Professor, if I'm crossing the line and telling my story, sort of, it's available to you?
I think the thing that made me shift, where I felt like I could try to tell somebody else's story, was when I was telling somebody's story and it was entirely their story. And one of my teachers said to me, you can just say, I imagined that this is what it's like, and really make it about, put it in the I, so that I'm not telling their story. I mean, I am, but I'm doing it in a way that's coming from me. And so I think that really helped me to learn how to talk about other people's stories. And of course, we're always telling stories about other people, our families, and that could be very tough. That could be a very difficult thing, especially if you're talking about something that was hard in your childhood, which, often people do. So yeah, it's a really good question. It's like, where do you cross that line? But here, in this story, I really made it about Christopher's and my relationship more than anything, and what he meant to me, and how I saw him. It's really in a very positive light. And I could go on about, the things he did that just bugged the shit out of me. But, I really felt like this story I wrote to honor him, and I wanted to keep it in that light. And, I wanted to bring out his sense of humor and our easy relationship. But telling it from the I perspective as a personal essay, I think that makes it a lot easier.
Anybody else? Or we could go to another question if somebody, yeah, Bill.
Thank you so much for reading. My question is about humor in each of your works. Like, I think you could all be called funny writers, and your sense of humor resides in different places. Like Joe, it's maybe in the wordplay, Thea, it's in the dialogue, and Chino, it's in the physicality of like snatching the burrito. I'm wondering what you think about like the role of humor in your work, and how you modulate humor to like accommodate other moods. And also, speaking of the I, how you think about point of view in relation to humor and mood, because all of you have written in the first person, and I wonder if that is giving you easier access to being funny, or if like, or not. So, you're funny, why?
I think that it's easier for me to make jokes in my writing when I do write first person because it's so much more voice driven. But I would argue that my third person stories are so bleak, which it has its place. I love the bleak for sure, but I think that maybe because I am always somehow writing about something that's quite sad, I really do think humor is important in tempering that experience for the reader and for myself as the writer. I get a little kick out of things that make me laugh as I'm writing, and it helps me move through the story of whatever it is that I'm writing. But I do think for me personally, there's something about point of view that the humor in a first person story is very voice driven. When I write something in let's say in the third person, close third person or omniscient, I think that the humor can tend to be more observational or more situational, something to do more with like place or environment or like the political element or like some kind of like comment on society. Whereas I think that like for me it's almost easier for me to like make jokes that are more personal and inward and like derived from self-deprecation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've read a lot in first person. My short story collection, I think, is almost entirely in first person. And so it helps figure out the voice. It's just another sort of way to kind of flesh that out. A lot of my narrators aren't initially likable people, but you gotta root for the hero. And so I've found having things happen to them that are, somewhat humorous helps a reader kind of get on board with the kind of selfish, lovable loser that can't get out of their own way. And then those are the authors that I like and am emulating or just directly stealing from. I had a humorous bent to them. I especially like the ones where you'd laugh and then also get like punched in the heart like on the same page sometimes, and just that vacillation of emotions was something that I was quite taken with, and so humor being like a big part of that. But I just I liked it and wanted to try to infuse it in my work.
For me, because I write about social justice issues, about being trans, immigration issues, class, race, culture, and that's pretty much all I write about, and that is why I write, is so I can write about social justice issues, but they're very heavy. They can be very heavy. So I think bringing humor into it, really, and lightening it up, really, I think the message gets even told in a stronger way with humor, and bringing in lightness, as Joe was saying, and the connection between people too. I think that's also really important. Connection and community and camaraderie. I think that's really important in these stories as well.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions here from the gathered multitudes here? There is one question in the chat here that I'm going to ask. So let's see. Thea and Joe, for all of you, what was your process of choosing the framework of your stories tonight? Why did you choose this particular narrative this time? And that question is from Peggy. If there's anybody who would want to.
The frame. How did you choose
why did you choose this particular story for this occasion?
Oh, for this occasion. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll start since I'm talking. I don't want to, I was be the one to start, but I just finished this. I mean, I've been working on it for a while, and I thought it was done, and then I showed it to my essay group, and they had me cut down the sister scene. They wanted me to cut it out totally because they felt like it was kind of beside the point. But I really wanted to get in, that scene. So I cut it down. I tried to cut it down to a half scene, but it ended up being kind of a 3/4 scene. And I still do question whether it should be in there, but, yeah, so I just cut that down, and I finished the end, and I just finished it a couple days ago, so I knew I was gonna read this here, because I think, you know, I always like to read my latest, piece of work, and plus I want to try to get this published, so, you know, I wanna put it out more, so I chose it.
Thank you. And
I'm glad you did. I was torn between two stories. I brought a journal of something I had published recently, and then I brought another story that I printed out that is coming out later in the summer. And ultimately, I went with the one that I read because I felt like it. The place that the story started was more immediate, which I felt would be just better for reading aloud. You know, I like the story. I'm proud of the story, but that I read. But sometimes I feel like it's tricky choosing things to read for an audience because you're coming, you're coming at it from a place of complete unknown. So that's why I chose the piece that I read.
thank you. Joe?
Yeah, hi Peggy. I picked what I read tonight. It's because it's, like I said, it's the novel that I'm still working on, so it's fresh in my mind. But it's also what I submitted to the Steinbeck Fellowship, and so I thought, why not read the thing that got me here? So I did.
All right. Well, there are two other pieces to tonight's program here. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to proceed. Sounds good. Okay, let me just pull up a chair since we're already doing this a little bit different. So the first thing here is a bit, there is a sad note and a celebratory note here. I do want first, while I still have everybody's attention here, to speak to a matter that both has had a program-specific effect on the Steinbeck Fellows program and that has consequences well beyond our program. One of our current Steinbeck Fellows, Abdulrahman El-Gindi, as some of you may know, has been forced to flee the United States under the threat of the Trump administration's deportation policy. For the clearest explanation of Gindi's situation, I encourage everybody here to read his piece recently published in The Nation magazine entitled Why I Had to Flee the United States. Before coming to America, Gindi, while still a teenager, became a political activist in Egypt, where he protested against that despotic regime, which according to Human Rights Watch, quote, relies on naked coercion in the military and secret services as its main vehicles of control, end quote. He was imprisoned as a political prisoner for 6 years in Egypt. Since his release, he's enrolled in an MFA creative writing program at the University of Pittsburgh to tell his story. He's published extensively in the Washington Post and has received the European Union's Samir Kassir Award for Freedom of the Press. His memoir will be published by Penguin Random House next year. Yet despite all this, Gindi is not the kind of immigrant who apparently this administration appreciates. He speaks to what the writer Layla Lalami calls conditional citizenship that people of color in America have lived under for centuries, and to the precarious position of immigrants who are not at present citizens, as well as the role that the U.S. and other world powers play in the displacement and precarity of indigenous populations the world over. In view of Gindi's situation and obviously the many other people who are similarly affected by current deportation policies in this country, and frankly in the face of vast governmental and financial power, we as educators, I believe, must assert the power of our calling, the importance of open dialogue, of free scholarly inquiry, critical examination and conclusion, the value of the arts in connecting us globally and centering our shared humanity, all of which has been beautifully on display from these wonderful artists today, more so now than ever. And lastly, let me simply say I stand with Abdulrahman El-Gindi wherever he is. All right. Please stay up here, y'all, but I'd like to welcome two other folks to the stage. Our Steinbeck Fellows cohort, bring this other chair over here, is a growing one. And we have a new Steinbeck Fellows cohort. So Bill and Kate, please come on up. Got 2 chairs for you. And all right, so for folks online, though, you can see this, and I'm going to read both Kate and Bill's bios first, and then I'm also going to share the bios of our other new 2025-2026 Steinbeck Fellows workshop. His writing has received fellowship support from Kundiman, the University of Iowa, and William Morris Endeavor. Bill, welcome to the Steinbeck Fellows. I also want to welcome our 4 other incoming fellows. Olivia Chang is a writer from northern New Jersey. Her fiction can be found in the 3 Penny Review, Guernica, Epoch, the Georgia Review, and more. She holds an MFA in fiction and Zell Fellowship from the University of Michigan and is currently working on her first novel. Nayara Dusti is a fiction writer and translator from Siraj, Boucher, and elsewhere. She is a recipient of the Epiphany Magazine Breakout 8 Writers Prize, the St. Botolph Club Foundation Emerging Artist Award, the Key West Literary Seminar, Emerging Writer Award, the Massachusetts Cultural Council Artist Fellowship, a Grub Street Literary Grant, a Breadloaf Participant Fellowship, a Penn Heim Translation Grant, and a Penn Presents Booker Prize Foundation Grant. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Epiphany Magazine, The Common Magazine, the Massachusetts Review, and Nowruz Journal, among others. Her Persian translation of Alexander Heman's The Book of My Lives was published by Goman Press in Tehran in spring 2024. As a Steinbeck Fellow, she will be completing her first novel, She Lives Between Berkeley and Lisbon. Sarah Matsui is the winner of the Sewanee Review Nonfiction Contest, the Fractured Lit Contest, and the Breadloaf Catherine Bakeless Nason Award. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in the San Francisco Asian Art Museum, NPR Code Switch, Jacobin Magazine, the Southern Review, the Seventh Wave, Bellawit Poetry Journal, Pleiades, and The Offing. She is the recipient of the 2024-2025 Friends of the San Francisco Public Library Residency, the 2025 Virginia Center for the Creative Arts Christina Chu AAPI Writers Fellowship, and a 2025 Vermont Studio Fellowship, where she will be working on her debut essay collection. And finally, Jenny Lee is a writer from Honolulu, Hawaii, who holds an MFA from the University of Oregon and an MA from the University of California, Davis, where she received the Elliott Gilbert Memorial Prize in Fiction. She was also a finalist for the 2020 Iowa Review Award in Fiction. Her writing is inspired by her father's immigration from Laos and her mother's immigration from South Korea. She is currently working on a novel that follows a civilian Laotian family as they flee their homeland near the end of the Civil War. And I also, just lastly, I know, it's just last of all, want to, in addition, welcome our new cohort of Steinbeck Graduate Fellows along with them. And those folks are Jack Sides, who is in attendance here, Mike Long, Dominic Demopoulos, Opal Franklin, Haley Jernigan, and Jessica Roselius. Let's give y'all more work. Okay, so yeah, we are complete here, y'all. I do need to thank our donors. I need to thank the Martha Heasley Cox Center for Steinbeck Studies. I need to thank Noelle Breda Williams, our English department chair, Nick Taylor, and our provost here, Vincent Del Casino, and our current Steinbeck director, Dr. Daniel Rivers. With that, we are out. Okay. Thank you, everybody, in person and online. Peace.
I enjoyed that a ton. Thank you.
You had fun? Good.
Thank you, man. Congratulations.